want to ask you, and comfort the Ramley, Jake, is because we've heard reports like Eric Dickerson's like sign Todd Gurley, and we've heard trade for Kareem Hunt, and we've heard sign Adrian Peterson. We see all this, and there's a legitimate concern about how Darrell Henderson is the only running back with the Rams who has actually taken an NFL snap before. So that's a legitimate concern. But can you comfort the Ramley a bit? What are your thoughts, towards any of these, or should the Rams just stay put? Let's wait for training camp.
Yeah, it's a great question. I would, first off, I think I'm going to make a video later on about it. But for people saying that Todd Gurley makes absolutely no sense for the Rams, I got to disagree. Like you said, and you pointed out, great point, by the way, because I haven't really heard anyone say it, even though it's right out there in the open. Just take it. There's only one guy in the running back room that has taken snaps in an NFL game, and that is Darrell Henderson. Now, I like guys like Otis Anderson. Mm-hmm. I like guys like Xavier Jones. I think Xavier Jones, if you gave him the carries, he could go over 1,000 yards. As crazy as that sounds, I think the Rams' offensive line's underrated. They're top 15 at the very worst. They're going to be top 10, I think, this year. But when you look at them, you look at a guy like Jake Funk. I had a 6th round grade on him. I'm not as high on him as some other people. Like, they're already saying that this guy can start. I don't think that, but I did have a 6th round grade on him. They got him the 7th, so they actually got him higher or lower, rather, better value than what I had. But look, the fact of the matter is this: Darrell Henderson can be the guy. Darrell Henderson can be a top 12 fantasy running back this year. Realistically, his ceiling to me, and if you're playing fantasy, is running back 6. I think he's really in for an explosive season. I don't just make videos for clickbait. When people ask me, do you really expect him to explode? I do. And I don't think it's crazy to think that. I mean, this is a guy that averaged over 8 yards per carry in Memphis. I talked to his running back coach, Anthony Jones Jr., on the Downtown Rams podcast a few years ago. He had nothing but great things to say about him. And in case you didn't notice, he's got a running back factory going on in Memphis. I mean, you look at guys like, of course, Antonio Gibson, Tony Pollard. I mean, they've really been churning guys out. Darrell Henderson's no different. And so to me, when people say, well, this guy, he gets banged up a lot and what have you, Cam Akers got more banged up than he did, first off. Secondly, there's also this notion, this preconceived notion, just looking at a smaller running back. Look, the guy, let's be honest here. If you've been following the Rams back to St. Louis, he should remind you a little bit of a former Ram, Trey Mason. I mean, he has a very similar build. He's got the home run hitting ability. I understand why people want to run for the hills when they see that, because they think, one, the Trey Mason saga in St. Louis didn't end well. Actually went to LA and it didn't end well. And two, they look at the fact he isn't all that built, so he can't withstand the punishment. But I just disagree with that, because when you look at Henderson, he had more broken tackles of any running back on the roster last year. That includes Cam Akers and Malcolm Brown, who are way more built than Henderson, so to speak. But furthermore, he had one more missed tackle that he generated than Cam Akers, and they were in the 20s. So this is somebody that is elusive. I don't think he's given enough credit for what he does. But furthermore, and this is a big one, PFF, and I'm not saying PFF is the Bible, but this is something. He was the number 1 rated running back through week 8 of the NFL season by PFF. That, keep in mind, that includes receiving, that includes carrying the football, and that includes, of course, the other element, which is so huge that will keep you on a field or take you off it, pass protecting. And he is a phenomenal pass protector for what he is. I mean, you don't look at him and think that guy can pass protect, but he can. And that's what's going to keep him on the field. That's why I do have him as a 3-down running back. And furthermore, in the receiving game, people talk about his lack of receiving at Memphis. Well, when you look at Memphis, they had Kenneth Gainwell. Obviously, that's another guy I forgot to mention earlier, 5th-round pick for the Philadelphia Eagles, total steal. They had Antonio Gibson. They had these guys. And they had Tony Pollard. So, yeah, he wasn't utilized in the passing game because they literally used Tony Pollard and Antonio Gibson for that said role. But the interesting thing here with Darrell Henderson is that he showed you last year that he can do it. Jared Goff just couldn't get him the football. I mean, we saw it. He overthrew him on numerous occasions. Now he's got Matthew Stafford. Stafford's going to use him. And regardless, Darrell Henderson doesn't have to carry the workload of like an Ezekiel Elliott the year he had like 400 touches. That's what's being misinterpreted by people. Look at what he did against Buffalo. He did that in like 18 carries, maybe 22 total touches on the game, and he had 100 something yards in that game and a touchdown. He was amazing in that game. Then you look at the 49er game. Okay. Then you look at the Seattle game at the end of the year down the stretch. I mean, he looked great, but then he gets the ankle injury and everyone wants to call him injury prone. Got news for you. I don't care what running back in the NFL gets that ankle. They're getting hurt. And you know, that's the fact. So I just look at Henderson. There's a lot going for him here. There's a lot of momentum. This is the perfect time for him to break out because people are already calling for Jake Funk to take over him. People are already calling for Le'Veon Bell, who has proven really he hasn't been the same since he left Ben Roethlisberger in Pittsburgh. And furthermore, people are calling on Devontae Freeman, who, I mean, I would take anybody on the roster over Devontae Freeman. So if you want to look at any running back that could come in, to me, it's Todd Gurley and it's Adrian Peterson. And I wouldn't really make a trade outside because you don't have a ton of picks. You gave up a lot of picks for Stafford, so you need to keep that in mind. But if you're going to trade for anyone, maybe a Sony Michel for a late round pick. Kareem Hunt is not available by any stretch. The Browns have something there with him and Chubb that nobody in the league has that teams are trying to replicate. So they're not going to trade him. I've heard people mention Mostert. That's also not happening. Intra-division trades are very rare. So I look at it and I'm thinking Todd Gurley and Adrian Peterson are the best bets. First off, Adrian Peterson still has it. The film shows it. He could still run for 1,000 yards if need be. If you gave him the carries, he could still do it. But Todd Gurley is the most interesting one here. Not only is Eric Dickerson on board, I'm 100% on board to bring back Todd Gurley. First off, let's look at it, okay? Todd Gurley, Adrian Peterson both had more rushing yards and rushing touchdowns than anybody on the roster last year. And I know everybody basically split carries, but the fact of the matter is this. These guys are still getting in the end zone. Todd Gurley had 9 touchdowns last year. Todd Gurley the year before with the Rams had 12? I mean, he is a touchdown monster. That doesn't hurt you. And so, recently Bleacher Report has, an alert come up on my phone, and it's like this report where, the Rams don't view Todd Gurley as a starter anymore. And everyone's like losing their mind. I'm like, that's fine, because Todd Gurley has a perfect scenario here where if he can forgive the Rams, and I'm saying 100% he should, because there was a lot that went down there, but if he can, now Todd Gurley can go back home. He can go back to where it's comfortable for him, the offense. And on top of that, he can basically be there with Henderson. He could be in an offense that's similar. He can be there with a very good quarterback in Matthew Stafford, a great defense, and a new and improved offense that has guys like Tutu Atwell, Deshaun Jackson, and Van Jefferson. And we'll even see potentially Jacob Harris stretching the field, adding another wrinkle to the offense, another dynamic, which opens up the run game even more. So it's easier on Henderson, but it's easier on Gurley because you can really manage Gurley's workload while also still giving him, some carries. And, when people are like, absolutely no Todd Gurley, he wouldn't cost that much, one. And two, you're not signing him to be the number one back. You're signing him to be another guy there. Essentially, you're signing him because while you may like Xavier Jones a ton, and I am right there with you. I mean, Xavier Jones had 20 rushing touchdowns or 20 plus rushing touchdowns his last season with SMU and would have been a 4th or 5th round pick in the draft had there not been COVID holding everyone back from actually working in the pre-draft process, which was unprecedented. So yeah, I like him, but keep this in mind. Sean McVay coached the team that had to go out and get CJ Anderson off their couch because they had a similar situation where they had a 6th round. Yeah, I mean, you're hearing this right now. Doesn't this sound like where they're at right now? 6th round pick in John Kelly. And they had a UDFA who they really liked in Justin Davis. And where did that go? It went nowhere. It went so nowhere that they literally brought in CJ Anderson. So I think there's still part of that still in Sean McVay's head that could, problems could arise. So they're going to play this slowly. And the last thing you would want if you're going to sign a Todd Gurley or Adrian Peterson, a guy that's, 36 years old or a guy that has potentially 36-year-old knees, here's the thing. You don't want to sign them right now. You want to wait until the end of training camp when you finally realize, wow, we need a guy, because this is the fact of the matter is this. I don't want Todd Gurley getting hurt in training camp. I don't want to have to, basically teach him all the nuance of the offense and everything and have him get hurt. I'm totally fine with them signing him before the season starts, grooming him back into what they do, and just rolling with the guys they have, keeping them on the roster. Maybe it knocks off a Raymond Calais or an Otis Anderson or even Jake Funk, because we've seen talented guys get knocked off and on in the practice squad. Even if that happens, I'm okay with it. But people saying that like they want him to be the starter, like nobody's replacing Henderson as the starter. It's either going to be a timeshare, a running back by committee approach, or there's not going to be anybody there, and it's going to be Henderson being the guy. But on top of that, they don't have to run it 400 times because their offense is going to be explosive in the passing attack. And I really do believe that. So I know that's a lot there, but those are my thoughts essentially on what's going on in that room. Why I do believe Todd Gurley is probably the best scenario here, because they don't need to go out and get a guy that's like a top-notch running back. They need a guy that has familiarity, which Peterson has familiarity with Stafford. That's definitely fair. But they need a guy that can also pass protect. Gurley can do that. He can catch passes out of the backfield. He just doesn't have the explosiveness anymore. But he also was third in the league in rushing before he got benched.
Oh, Jake, preach it. Oh, I love it. No, and I very much agree with you. There's no point to signing. If you are going to sign a veteran running back, Todd Gurley or Adrian Peterson or anyone, there's no point doing it right now. Wait till you're, in training camp and you're scouting your young guys that you've said you believe in. McVay has said he likes what he sees in his young running back room. So find out in your own camp if you're comfortable going into the season with that. If not, okay, that's when you would sign a veteran to it. Yeah, no, I very much agree with that. And it's going to be juicy. I can't wait till training camp actually starts so we can have like stuff to talk about other than just speculation.